Hi, my name is Sandy and I live in New Jersey. September 1990 arrived and it was an exciting time for me and my husband as we were having our second child after having experienced a terrible miscarriage the year before, which had been a really hard time for us to get through. And it just felt like it was a perfect time to be celebrating life and this gift from God. This pregnancy was just so perfect in spite of all the extra tests I was having, as they needed to be sure the baby was safe. I was just so thankful and happy each day of feeling her growing inside me. God giving us this opportunity to have another child after that miscarriage was such a gift and an answer to prayer, as I literally got pregnant 7 months to the day of losing our other baby. Our oldest daughter was 3.5 at the time, and she was just so happy to be getting a sister to play with, and we were just beyond excited to be growing our family. On September 30th, 1990, we gave birth to our daughter, and when I was asked by the nurses in the hospital what I was going to name her, I already knew she'd be called Kristen, which means follower of Christ. I had dedicated her to Jesus when I was told by my doctor that I was pregnant. I knew this was all his will and asked him to please let our baby be safe, as I couldn't bear the thought of miscarrying again. God was so very merciful to us, and there was just no words to express my gratitude and the happiness we were feeling with the birth of our beautiful little girl. Honestly, I was scared to be happy. It seemed whenever I was too happy, there was always something that would happen to take away the joy. We got home and began to settle in, of course, and were just as busy as young, happy family normally is with raising 2 children. December was here and Christmas was soon upon us, when on a Sunday evening after arriving home from an anniversary celebration, we opened up a letter from a lab asking us to call them as soon as possible regarding some blood results for my husband, who had just given blood for my mother's cousin who was suffering with cancer. We immediately called the next day and were told we needed to go in to the lab to meet with the doctors. We went days later when they scheduled us. And on December 17th, 1990, we were told of my husband's diagnosis. It was a diagnosis that at the time we knew would take his life at an early age. At that moment, I thought my life would end, as I couldn't even grasp what was happening to us. Each day after the news was such a struggle for me to get up, and yet I had no choice. I had a newborn and a 3.5-year-old who needed me. All I did was pray and cry. I was numb, but also knew I had to keep strong for my kids. I ran to church every day with my newborn baby after dropping off our oldest daughter who had just started pre-K. I would hear Mass, pray, and beg God for this to have all been a mistake. I didn't know what to do. It was all out of my control, and I only felt some peace while I sat in church. I felt alone and I had no idea how we'd get through. Our families were just as lost and tried to just help us in our day-to-day responsibilities as we began to research, visit doctors, and have more tests. It was then one Sunday after Mass that I was introduced to Divine Mercy. God knew that I could not survive this all without him. Since me and my husband were both involved in church ministries at the time, it became obvious to some that something was happening in our lives. And a woman who was in charge of scheduling Eucharistic ministers in the parish approached me and said, "I know you are going through something and you are struggling, and just wanted to tell you about a devotion that I have, and it's called Divine Mercy." She handed me a prayer card and then invited me to her house to pray. I attended that afternoon and continued to attend every Sunday that I could. Eventually, I learned how to pray it myself and did so religiously each day. What comfort it brought me, as it still does today. Each time I prayed with this group, I was constantly being told, God is with you through your suffering, and lift up your sufferings for those in need, for the sick and the dying and the souls in purgatory. Unite your sufferings with the sufferings of Christ. I was just so thankful to have these angels who I knew God had sent to me to teach me of not only the devotion, but about what it was to suffer and trust. They taught me of St. Faustina's diary and all her trials and tribulations. While there are so many entries to look back on, the ones that I found strength from were 151, do not be afraid of suffering, I am with you. 669, my daughter, suffering will be the sign for you that I am with you. To me, they were direct words from Jesus to my heart. I needed so much to know God was at my side, that he was going to help our little family. I learned from St. Faustina that if I united my sufferings to Jesus' passion and lifted them up for sinners, they were not wasted and could save souls, and that suffering souls were the closest to Jesus' heart. That was actually a phrase I had heard as a child growing up, something my grandmother would say all the time. And so I began to reflect on those words and believe in that wholeheartedly. These words truly gave me strength to face each day. Years and years and years passed, and with each new year, I thanked God for giving us another year together and allowing my children to have their dad. Never could I have imagined the diagnosis that was a death sentence on that December morning could one day be considered a treatable illness, that scientists would find more than just the one medicine that was available in 1990, and that my husband's life would be spared and he'd be able to see our children grow up into adults. My husband just turned 68 years old in November. He was 33 at the time of that devastating news. We raised our daughters who are now married with children of their own. Our lives have been a roller coaster, filled with good and bad and sometimes very overwhelming. But through every single moment, God has always shown up for us and has given us his grace, mercy, love, and strength. And for that we are extremely thankful for. Nothing I do, that we do, could ever be enough to thank God for all he's done in our lives. But I do look to give to others the mercy and love that has been shown to us. And I look to always share and spread this devotion of divine mercy.